वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय।
Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivara Dari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivara Dari Gopi Janavalabha Girivara Dari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivara Dari Gopi Janavalabha Girivara Dari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamunatira Jaya Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Padamahansa Padavarajikacharya Sata Shishimad, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantikoti Vaishnav Vrind Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Adwaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda, Hari Hari Bolo, all glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna, all glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna, all glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna, all glories to Shri Shri Guru Angaranga and His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're in the Srimad Bhagavatam on the 10th canto, chapter 60, text 32. Shri Shuko Vacha Shaivam Bhagavata Rajan Vaidarbhi Parisantva Gyatva Tat Parihasoktim Priya Tyaga Bayam Jaya. Shishuku Vacha Saivam Bhagavata Rajan Vaidarbhi Parisantita Gyatva Tat Parihasoktim Priyatyaga Bayam Jahau. Shishuko Vacha Saivam Bhagavata Rajan Vaidarbhi Parisantita Yatva Tat Parihasoktim Priyatyaga Bayam Jayau. Shishuko Vacha Saivam Bhagavata Rajan Vaidarbhi Parisantita Yatva Tat Parihasoktim Priyatyaga Bayam Jahau. Shri Shuko Vacha Saivam Bhagavata Rajan Vaidarbhi Parisantita. Ladies? Anybody else? You should go. Oh, you just did. Oh, was I somewhere else? Shri Shuku Vacha. Shukadev Goswami said, Sa Shi Evam thus Bhagavata by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rajan, O King, Vaidarbhi, Queen Rukmini, Parishantuta, fully pacified, Gyatva, understanding, Tat, his, Parihasa, spoken in jest, Uktim, words, Priya, by her beloved, Tyaga, of rejection, Bayam, her fear, Jahau, gave up. So translation, Shukadev Goswami said, O King, Queen Vaidarbhi was fully pacified by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and understood that his words had been spoken in jest. Thus she gave up her fear that her beloved would reject her. So we can repeat. So sorry. Yeah, I stroked the one way. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, O King, Queen Vaidarbhi was fully pacified by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and understood that his words had been spoken in jest. Thus, she gave up her fear that her beloved would reject her. So, I'm going to read the commentaries and then we'll go to class. Jiva Goswami shares that Rukmini had come from Vaidarbha because of her great attraction to him, Vaidarbhi. She gave up fear that he would reject her. And Sanatana Goswami shares that she was pacified by the Lord, endowed with all powers, Bhagavat. She became completely peaceful because she, though a very young girl, had given up everything for him. Or she was capable of understanding the truth since she was the most intelligent, Vaidarbhi. She understood his statements were jokes. She gave up fear that he would give her up, but he was Bhagavan. Or the reason she gave up fear was that she was Vaidarbhi, not a person of Matila. It was possible for a person of her birth. She should not trust him. As Ram, he showed proper dharma, and now as Ram, he showed proper dharma, and now it was not possible to go against his word, since he manifested all good qualities, such as affection for the devotee. O King, she developed fear because his words. Why have trust in the words of anyone else? So Omigana Timiranda Shagananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Why have trust in the words of anyone else? Really, and then, thinking about Rukmini's position and giving up her fear of everything and dedicating her whole life to Krishna, her whole mind, body, and words is so evidenced in all her actions that she's so attached to Krishna. And then even as we go further, you'll hear her reasons, and actually validate everything that he said. Because of her relationship, she has this intimate understanding. Because she's pure devotee, she understands who Krishna really is. But then for me, thinking about this situation, and wanting to have that level of devotion that I'm so attached to Krishna that the thought of losing him is like the loss of life. It's like, not having any purpose or reason to live, because Krishna's, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he has all living entities in his heart and his mind and his soul. And because we're part and parcel of him, and our choice to disconnect and turn our backs to Krishna, that he's constantly wanting to make every endeavor to bring us back to him, right? And yet we're so attached and so lost in the fear of losing anything material, right? And then, not having the ability to be peaceful, right? And, she's gained this through having, the spiritual intelligence to understand him, and having a capable birth and understanding the truth and all these things. But of course, trying to bring it back to myself, the first thing that came to mind was, how am I going to have any peace? Right? How are we going to have any peace? And of course, there's lots of mentions in the Bhagavad Gita about the peace formula and finding peace in our lives. And so I wanted to kind of share that, or reemphasize that, because I know we've heard these things so many different times, but at least speaking for myself, it's always good to have constant reminders, because we're in this material world and we're getting constantly pulled and, potentially attracted by all these different things other than Krishna. And so it's always good to bring us back to the heart of the matter, which is trying to develop Krishna in our heart, right? And trying to learn how to love Krishna in everything that we do, and not be distracted by these sparkly things, right? These bright and sparkly, shiny things, versus having Krishna in our heart and then becoming the sparkly things for other people, right? Because we're so attached to Krishna, we shine a different light than most people, and you know that if you've been practicing Krishna consciousness, that the devotees definitely have, because of our attachment to Krishna, because of our endeavor to learn to love Krishna and share that with other people. People are attracted to that without even knowing why, right? So in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 66, one who is not connected with the Supreme and Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace, right? So again, this re-emphasis of transcendental spiritual intelligence, developing that, and having no peace without that, because if you don't have spiritual intelligence, you're not going to have a steady mind. You're always going to be disturbed by adhyatmic, adhibodhic, adhidaivik, all these different things that upset us in the material world are constantly being fed into us, like the rivers into the ocean. But if we're Krishna consciousness, then we're calm and we're peaceful, and we can understand these things come and go, the body, the mind, all the living entities and all the circumstances come and go, but we're able to remain peace because of our spiritual intelligence. And the wonderful thing about Krishna conscious spiritual intelligence is that we get to have an amazing relationship. It's not just dry mental speculation. I was just talking about that last night. One of my favorite purports is in which Prabhupada shares that religion without philosophy can be, over emotional and sometimes fanaticism, right? And that philosophy without religion can be dry mental speculation. So we have to have the intelligence and the heart. There cannot be separation in Krishna consciousness, because how can we love this? We need the intelligence to learn how to love Krishna, but we have to have a heart too. We have to have emotions. We have to be sentient beings. We are sentient beings to have this relationship with Krishna. And so that's a matter of the heart, and that's what's different. When that's what people see without even knowing that there's some difference within the devotee is because, there's this heart, this intelligent heart, and so that shines so much differently than anything in the material world, because most of the time people are wrapped up in their emotions and their, over emotions and all these other things and attachment to all the material things, and so codependent on these material things, that they're not even really thinking about other people's needs, right? Or they're so into their head and into being pundits and, philosophical speculators that they forget that other people are real, that it's all in, how intelligent they are. And that's the beauty of Krishna consciousness, is this balance between the head and the heart, constantly, of recognizing personalism, right? But with intelligence. And that's, something Prabhupada also talked about was, being independently thoughtful, right? Is because we need to be independent living entities, because we have these unique individual gifts and traits that are part and parcel that are characteristic of Krishna, and then we use our intelligence to be able to serve Krishna, and use that independence thoughtfully, very thoughtfully, in how we can serve Krishna. So I was thinking about this in context of, again, being attached to all these different things that Prabhupada called fallible soldiers. And, I've been thinking this about in so many contexts in my own personal experience, because my house is kind of like not there right now. I've got this, it's being renovated, but, it's like my whole life is thrown up as far as, my physical place of staying. And I have all these different physical challenges, and then I've been going through some mental challenges in the context of my family, because now my father's not speaking to me because of a table. Right? And so, and it just emphasizes this attachment, because of his attachment to material things, and because I gave that to a family member, he's not speaking to me. And it's just strange. It's, quite not understandable. And so, there's this full separation from family, this fallible soul, these things that we identify or think, that we can depend on, and we can't. The only thing that we can depend on is Krishna. Why have trust in the words of anyone else, is what Sanatana Goswami said. And that was just so impactful on me. It's like, why have trust on anyone else other than Krishna? And the thing is that it's not like, well, I have trust in Krishna, so foo-foo you, I don't care about you, what you do or you say, treat me how you want. No, he still wants us to have compassion. He still wants us to connect to him, so that we still understand that no matter what anybody does, whatever the circumstances are, that they're part and parcel of Krishna too. They're just suffering and misunderstanding. They're covered, by their material misunderstanding. So he still wants, at least speaking for myself, me to have a heart, and he still wants us to have a heart in these things, but use my intelligence about it and not just be, fanatical, over emotional about these things, so that I can have a very clear picture. And so, Prabhupada's talking about that in all these verses that I came across relative to losing our fear, having a steady mind, and being peaceful. Unless one is in Krishna consciousness, there is no possibility of peace. So it is confirmed in the 5th chapter, 529, that when one understands that Krishna is the only enjoyer of all the good results of sacrifice and penance, that he is the proprietor of all universal manifestations, and that he is the real friend of all living entities, then only can one have real peace. Therefore, if one is not in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be a final goal for the mind, which is also impactful, because so many people are running around chasing their tail, trying to catch it and snip at it, in this material endeavor of just, going in the mouse wheel, thinking they're getting somewhere when they're just continually spinning, their wheels. There can't be a final goal in mind. And think about that. There cannot be a final goal. There can be no end point. This final goal of reaching, going back home, back to Godhead, and, reaching that final goal of being with Krishna. And if you think about it, that's samsara. It's going from birth, death, old age, and, disease, from birth to death, to birth to death, to birth to death. It's this cycle over and over and over again. So they think there's a final goal of reaching this big, resolution to everything, or, having the end goal of so much money, or having the perfect house and the car, the perfect family, the perfect friends, all these other things. I mean, okay, you've got it for one lifetime, and you're going to try to keep getting it for, many, 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 many lifetimes, but there's no end goal, Whereas with Krishna consciousness, you can have that ultimate goal of being fully satisfied by being selfless, by doing the exact opposite, by putting Krishna in the middle of everything. And that's what Rukmini's position is that she fully gave up everything. She went against her father and her brother especially, and it's like, and heard about Krishna and was like, okay, that's it, final goal, that's my goal, is Krishna, which is ours. And, was willing to sacrifice everything, maybe even her honor or, social etiquette and all these other things, to be with Krishna. And so that's our goal, is to lose our fear of thinking that we won't have anything if we give up everything for Krishna, right? It's so, and it's so ingrained in us. It's only natural. It's not that we, again, beat ourselves up or get depressed about that, but just using our spiritual intelligence and knowing that our heart can be placed in a different position. And the way of doing that is to constantly think of Krishna. And, watched Mahabharata multiple times, including the new one. And one of the things about Rukmini is that her whole room was, had pictures and backdrops and all these things of either peacock feathers or Krishna, images of Krishna. She's constantly thinking about Krishna in her heart, right? And so, and really she's at peace. I mean, yes, she was stressed out of thinking he's not going to come out, not going to come to get her. And Krishna does have a tendency to do that, to kind of push us to the last minute of thinking, he's going to be there for us and kind of testing us of how much shelter we're actually going to take. But it's not to be mean. It's to really just bring us closer and draw us in, and test us too, to kind of see, where are we really going to put our alliance, with depending on material things or depending on Krishna. It's really very simple. Again, just to reiterate, Krishna is the enjoyer, proprietor, and friend of everyone and everything. Then one can, with a steady mind, bring about peace. Therefore, one who is engaged without a relationship with Krishna is certainly always in distress and is without peace. However much he may make a show of peace and spiritual advancement in life, Krishna consciousness is a self-manifested, peaceful condition which can be achieved only in relationship with Krishna. So again, to me, this was an invitation of, I can't make some external show of peace and spiritual advancement and not be, in other words, the degree to which I'm attached to Krishna is the degree to which I don't show, peace or spiritual advancement, my need for validation in that. That the more I'm connected to Krishna, the less that's required. Because it's self-manifested peaceful condition, right? And then in text 2, a person in 71 in Bhagavad Gita, a person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain peace. And then Prabhupada goes on to talk about the fact of, becoming desireless doesn't necessarily mean, just giving up all sense gratification falsely, but rather to desire to become Krishna conscious and to perform our activities for Krishna, that's actually what desireless means, and that getting to that position or that state is what will bring about peace in our heart, and that actually that is the way of spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered by anything. And if one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. So again, these encouragements that we get, again, I was just really appreciating Srila Prabhupada, and all the sacrifices that he made, all the patience and tolerance that he exhibited, because his ultimate goal, and we were talking about this last night with a friend, that, the spiritual master has the desire to simply make sure that everybody's situated Krishna consciously, so that they can advance and become happy and peaceful, right? And truly learn to serve and to become a servant of the servant of the servant. And so, again, all of this for me, when I'm reading all these things, is an invitation to try to figure out, how can I deepen my spiritual life and become more codependent on Krishna than these fallible soldiers? How can I really come to that place where I truly know Krishna's got my back in every situation, and trust that he's that final factor of action and all the factors of action, and that, he's got me, he's got my back. It's something my spiritual master has said multiple times as I've gone to him for shelter, and that's where our real shelter is taking shelter, actually taking it, and realizing with humility our true position of, not being the controller, not being the proprietor and the enjoyer, and actually being humble enough to admit it and getting the help that we need by approaching the spiritual master or the advanced devotees to get those things fed. And that was one of the things that he reiterated for me, because he understood, and the spiritual master does, Prabhupada understood, every individual's circumstance, and they all mirrored that constantly. Like, I felt like, Prabhupada could just see through my eyes and into my soul and understand exactly what I needed. And that's the gift of having a spiritual master, my spiritual master would very often say, I've got your back, And even though I knew that, it's always good to have that affectionate support from the spiritual master. The chastisement too, because we need to be able to stay on that razor's edge. But, just being so grateful for Prabhupada and setting up this whole holistic system for helping us to become happy and satisfied and peaceful, and then to be able to share that with everybody, so that everybody else could feel that, through seeing that. And that's what real spiritual knowledge is, and what that self-realization is understanding how connected everything is to Krishna, and then trying to go out, because again, even though everything's connected to Krishna, because of our own desires and need to control, being influenced by the modes, so often we are disconnected in some way. We're like puzzle pieces, and we all need to be put back into the puzzle to make this complete holistic picture in the spiritual world, right? And we all have this specific place and a specific shape, even though there's different personalities that are very similar, there's different personalities that are very different shapes. We all fit into this beautiful Krishna conscious puzzle, and we all have a place to belong in that puzzle, right? And so that's, really in essence what we're trying to learn here, and through these examples of what's given, by this process of Krishna consciousness, and developing the faith, right? And that was something else that came to mind too. It's, some of the prayers that we say in chapter 9, text 31, he quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace, O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes, right? So it's just, again, just this re-emphasis of learning how to love Krishna, finding, our heart and using our intelligence to remain balanced in developing that relationship with Krishna. We're just so fortunate. I keep thinking about that over and over and over again, because as we all experience different miseries in this material world, whether it's, family, whether it's the body, circumstances, misunderstandings, so many different things. But we each have, this connection with Krishna, and we can each come back to that connection and to have that shelter. But it's also incumbent upon us to take shelter, to take the initiative to, be introspective enough to challenge ourselves, to be and be open to realizing where we need to make changes in order to be able to advance, right? To admit our weaknesses and then not see it and, sink down into this pity pool and get sucked down into this whirlpool of being self-absorbed, but being introspective enough to understand that we have a challenge, and that facing that challenge is only going to make us stronger and become more Krishna conscious if we keep him with us in that whole process, of trying to be humble and trying to ask for help and to pray for help and to chant the holy names, be connected with, the, personalism that Krishna consciousness is through this. And we have that opportunity every time we chant. Are we going to chant personally by realizing that Krishna is present and on the dancing on the tongue every time we take a mantra with the bead? Are we really going to be present and connected to him and have a personal relationship when we're chanting? And he'll reciprocate according to our level of endeavor in that regard. Same thing with everything that we do. Any devotional service that we have, whether it's dressing the deities, whether it's cooking, whether it's polishing the silver, whether it's polishing the brass, whether it's putting on the Tulsi skirt. We actually get to dress Tulsi Devi. How we offer the flower in the ashman. Are we being really thoughtful, or are we just being mechanical about it? How much are we giving our heart when we do everything that we do to connect as a person to Krishna personally? Through every single service that we do. And making that present, and, not as a criticism, but just to be self-aware. Again, self-aware, how much are we working on developing that loving relationship with Krishna? And not just for our own personal interest, just to become personally peaceful, so that we don't have to do anything anymore. Like Prabhupada said, he finished that last bead, and now you can do whatever you want. It's not like that. There's a lot of work to be done. Constantly, but the more work we do, the greater the love we have, the greater the love we can share, right, with everybody and everything. And then it's just I don't know. It's really wonderful to have those moments of reciprocation, right, with Krishna, because he validates it, and I'm sure you've all had those experiences where Krishna's validated things with you, as you've gone through your devotional life. I'm sure there's some reciprocation, because he knows it's a necessary part of any relationship to have reciprocation. But it's also, for somebody who's, as infantile as myself, or as infants as we are in our devotional service, to know we're going in the right direction, and that we're going, taking the right steps to really learn how to walk in our Krishna consciousness. There needs to be encouragement there, and that's what those realizations are and encouragements are, to give us the strength to keep on learning to walk devotionally and to not give up and walk away, because it would be easy, if we get handicaps. And those handicaps, again, from Adhyatmik, Adhidaivic, and Adhibautic, whatever those things we have, that are handicaps, they can either take us down or they can make us stronger. But we have that choice. It's all up to us to choose how strong we want, to be, to continue. And it can be hard at times. And I think, too, that as things are difficult and hard, that's also an indication that Krishna is reciprocating with us, because he knows that's what we need in order to challenge us to grow stronger. If he was just passive about it all and we never had any challenges, just like my ACL popped and I had to have that replaced. And one of the things I had to do is go through physical therapy, but the challenge had been is that my thigh muscle had not been fully extended, so it atrophied quite a bit. And so the physical therapy was incredibly painful. They were doing like electrode shock on the muscle to recontract it. And I mean, it was intense. It was very intense, but for the purpose of making it strong and useful again. And so the same thing is true for anything that we do, or that we're receiving, and another opportunity to re-perceive and take our perspective, like, oh, this is Krishna's arrangement, right? So again, these challenges are to help us strong, and that's through Krishna's love. It's not because he just wants us to suffer the pain of the challenge. It's that he wants us to become stronger in our Krishna conscious, more independently thoughtful, all these different things of, strengthening our spiritual muscle so that we can have our relationship with him no matter what. Right? Because that's what real humility is. I remember that so specifically. One devotee talking about that had shared that Bhakti Tirtha Swami was talking about how, and my spiritual master also talks about how, Krishna conscious is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less often, right? And so, again, just this balancing process of really trying to think of Krishna more and to become stronger. And so in relationship with being humble in that regard, you have to be able to do things that other people in normal society that are going down river as you're trying to walk up river are going to try to turn you around and turn you in the other direction materially to go with the flow of material life. And so you have to have the courage and the strength to be able to move in Krishna consciousness against that flow. And so, again, that's real humility, which is sometimes being strong. It's not just being meek and passive and just letting somebody walk all over you and drag you back downstream. It means being strong and meek and humble enough to do the right thing, in light of Krishna consciousness. So, again, thinking of the example of Rukmini, she was attached to Krishna and she didn't care what anybody else said. The whole of society didn't care about that. She was willing to walk against the stream and, get in touch with Krishna, which I'm sure wasn't protocol, to be sending notes to men on the side, but it's Krishna, going against all of that, so that she could have that relationship with Krishna. And it takes humility when everybody's in your face telling you, you shouldn't do that. That's the other thing that just to bring up personal example, is that my sister had been visiting my father, and she hadn't been telling me, but he and my stepmother had been talking very degradingly about me and all my practices and everything. He said very negative things for a very long time. I thought my father really loved me, and I thought he really cared about me. But according to the conversations, that my sister was having, not, and so, again, we have these attachments to all these fallible soldiers and these things that we think that we can depend on. But I'm not willing to give up my Krishna consciousness just to have a relationship. Not going to do it. And all I can do is, set the example and hope that somehow, in their heart, Krishna can make an arrangement to shift their perspective. But if not, that's okay, because I am not giving up my Krishna consciousness, because that's ultimately what they want me to do, and, get upset over a table. It's just like, I don't know, it just, doesn't make sense, right? It's like, I'm going to give up the love of my daughter for a table. Whoa, okay. Makes total sense, right? But, again, it's going against the grain, it's going against everything to develop our relationship with Krishna no matter what. And that takes humility and the mercy and shelter of Krishna and the spiritual master. And you can see that in Rukmini. She's taken complete shelter. Whether he's joking, whether he's not, whether he's going to kick her out or not, she doesn't want to give that up. In fact, is, boom, all, faints on the floor. It's like too overwhelming. And that's where we should be. That's what I was thinking. That's what I want, is I want to be so attached to Krishna, the thought of him not being there or me having a relationship with me totally knocks me out, right? So, anyway. Yes, ma'am? Yes. Yeah. Yes. Seeking help is definitely beneficial, but we're taught, especially in the Western world, to be the, that go west young man, do it by yourself, independent kind of personality. So it can be a little bit challenging to learn how to be dependent on Krishna, which is not codependency. That's a different thing. So, all glories, Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes. I know. It's just ludicrous.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Aravindanalayataksham Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Nandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyan Dipan Dikayanti Chiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami 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 Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Thank you. Page 9. Vajahure mana Shri Nandanana Abhaya Charana Indare Vajahure mana Shri Nandanana Abhaya Charana Vindare Dulapa Manava Janam Satsange Taro hoe baba sindure. Baba sindure. Sita hatapa patabarishana edina jamini jagire. Natapa patabarishana edina jamini jagire. Pipali sevenu kripana durjana. Chapala sukala balagide. Chapala sukala balagide. Etana yauvana putra parijana. Iteki achi parati tire. Etana yauvana putra parijana. Iteki achi parati tire. Kamala tala chala jivana tala mala. Bajahu hari padani dire. Padani dire. Shravana kirtana smarana vandana parasevana dashare. Shravana kirtana smarana vandana parasevana dashare. Shravana kirtana smarana vandana parasevana dashare. Pujana saki jana admani vedana. Pujana saki jana admani vedana. Govinda dasa bilashare. Vajahure mana Shri Nandanandana Bhaya Charanara Vindare. Bhaya Charanara Vindare. Vajahure mana Shri Nandanandana Abhaya Charanara Vindare. Vindare. Jaya Radha Golokananda Radha Golokananda Radhe. Jaya Radha Golokananda Radha Golokananda Radhe. Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya, 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 Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavrajagacharya Asta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Adwaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopagopana Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhani Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Gangamai Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaura Premananda, Hari Hari Bolo, all glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna, all glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna, all glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna, all glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga and His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Alrighty. O mind, just worship the lotus feet of the son of Nanda, which make one fearless. Having obtained this rare human birth, cross over this ocean of worldly existence by associating with saintly persons. Day and night I remain sleepless, suffering heat and cold, wind and rain. For a bit of flickering happiness, I vainly served wicked and miserly men. What assurance of real happiness is there in all one's wealth, youth, sons, and relatives? This life totters like a drop of water on a lotus petal. Therefore, you should always worship the lotus feet of Lord Hari. Govinda Das longs to hear the glories of the Lord Hari, chant his glories, constantly remember him, offer him prayers, serve his lotus feet, become his servant, worship him, offer him his prayers, serve his lotus feet, become his servant, worship him, serve him as a friend, and completely offer him his very self. Srila Jeev Govinda Das Kaviraj Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Radha Golokananda Ki Jai. Narpanam Yakarava Chandrikam Vijavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipadam Purnam Rishtashpadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tattarpitani Amita Smarane Nakala Etadrishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrisham Hihajani Nanuraga Trinada Pisu Nichena Tarora Pisu Hishnana Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Yasara Harahi Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagarishvakamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishvare Bhavatad Bhakti Rahaituki Twayi Ainanda Tanunja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishama Bhavam Budao Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stita Duli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galada Shrudaraya Vadanam Gadgada Rudaya Gira Pulaka Layarsantichidam Gurya Tava Nama Grahani Bhashate. Thank you, sweetie. Thank you. No. Gajisham Ditam Shunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Vedahename Aslisha vapadara tampajashtumam adarshanam marmahatam gurutuva yatatata vavitarduta lampato matprana natashtu sa eva naparaha. To the chanting of Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names, like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shikshastam ki jai.